All right, hey, it's March 30th, bringing you a Lake of the Ozarks fishing report. Things are starting to change. It's been a couple weeks since I did a report, and things are really changing. I'm gonna have to start doing them a little more often. Things are changing quickly now. We're coming out of winter, we're getting into summer, or not summer, spring, and the water temp's getting up there. So once that water temp gets up, we're hovering, 48 to 52 right now. So, the fish are getting really active. They're in several different stages of spring. Real quick before I forget, the lake level is 654.40. So it's come up just a little bit, about 4 inches in the last couple days. Let's see, over the week, like last week, I think it was Friday, we fished the BFL on Saturday, and Friday morning it was 653 something, and then Saturday morning when we got ready to take off, I looked at the phone, looked at the chart, and it had rose exactly a foot, like a foot and an inch overnight. So, springtime, there's a lot of changes that happen, cold fronts, a lot of wind, clouds, water fluctuation up or down, current, and it changes these fish. So what I'm getting at is you can catch them one day a certain way, and then the next day you may not get a bite that same way. So you got to be really open-minded and really not locked into certain patterns this time of year, or a certain technique, and say this is what I'm going to be able to do all day and catch them, because you might be disappointed at the end of the day, because I seen it over the weekend. They're pulling current, they're fluctuating current quite a bit. If you look back in the last 2 weeks since the last, they'll run 8,000, pretty consistent, but then they'll ramp it up to 25, 30,000 cubic foot, and that's quite a bit. That's enough. If they do that for more than, I'll say, 4 hours, I think the fish kind of move and react to it. They may load up more on points, or indentation on banks, secondaries, the little corners, whatever. I think they'll move and they'll feed accordingly. We'll just go like last week. Last week we pre-fished for BFL. Was able to get out 3 days. Monday I went out and I threw a rock crawler quite a bit, and I caught some good fish on it. So much that I was like, boy, this is going to be a big player, I think. And then, let's see, I didn't fish Tuesday. Wednesday I went out, and we concentrated on the jig, so, and we were fishing on the bottom, obviously, basically fishing transitions, spring transition banks, and man, we caught them good Wednesday. I mean, it was, a lot of good, solid, heavy keepers on Wednesday. So I go for Monday, catch them on a crankbait, kind of on main legs, secondaries, some gravelly mixture, to catching them on jigs on the bottom, working it slow on little steeper banks, transitions on Wednesday. So then Thursday went back out and started doing the same thing, trying to work the jig like I had done the day before, just in other areas, and man, they wouldn't bite it. I couldn't hardly get a bite on jig. I mean, we might have had 2 little keepers on it on Thursday. So now it sends me back into another, what am I going to do if they won't bite that jig? Through the crankbait. Didn't really want the crankbait that day. It's just typical spring. So you just got to really keep your mind open and change your locations. It's probably the biggest thing, as far as when you change location, you might go 4 or 5 miles up the lake or down the lake, and try to get in some different water color. Color's a big deal right now. There's a lot of different watercolors. You know, like the 9-wood right now is really dirty. It's normally not that dirty right now. You know, this time of year it's usually pretty clear. The glaze is dirty. It's really stained up pretty heavy. But then you get down to Lower Lake, say, the Gravois to the dam, like I was this afternoon, and it looks like table rock. You know, it's 4 or 5 foot visibility. So you got a lot of different things going on. Temperature's starting to play a big deal as far as like that dirty water. You know, today we had 48, 49 degrees, even had 50 towards the end of the day. And if it's 50 degrees for any, you know, couple, 3, 4 days and consistent, man, them fish will go right to that dirty water. I mean, they move up shallow. They get right next to laydowns, shallow brush, shallow dock corners, and things really change on what you can fish and how you might approach it. You know, if it's a muddy cold water like it was 2 weeks ago, man, I'm gonna shy away from it. I'm not gonna fish it. You know, as a matter of fact, I caught them in a creek pre-fishing for BFL. Actually, it was about a week and a half prior. Actually, it was one of the tournaments Denise and I fished and did pretty well on a jig in a big creek, major creek. And I actually ran there Saturday morning thinking, man, I'll get me some fish out of there, no problem. And we got in there, sat down, and man, it was chocolate milk from the heavy rain. There was debris floating. You know, normally that wouldn't bother me if it was 48, 50, 52 degrees, no problem. But we rolled in there and it was 46, 48 degrees, you know, the week before. We pulled in on Saturday morning, it was dirty, a lot of leaves floating, like I said, and it was back down to 45 degrees. So I went ahead and fished it because I knew the fish were there. I think I fished it an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, and I don't think I had a bite. So, you know, I just had to move on, keep an open mind, didn't get you know, discouraged or down in my mind, you know, and we just moved on. So we moved probably 3-4 miles further up the lake, got in a creek, and it you know, it had cleaned off quite a bit. It was stained, kind of like I like it. Water temperature was 48, 49, so it was a few degrees warmer than that 45. That was a pretty good cool down, and I think kind of shuts some fish down in the spring sometimes, you know. But it anyway, we headed up there, started fishing, and it wasn't long. Started getting some bites, and got a couple quality bites. So, and that was on jigs. You know, the jig bite is continuing to be pretty good, pretty consistent days. You know, I'm throwing 2 different jigs. Obviously, I'm throwing the half-ounce zapper with a tail that really swims, like a swamp bug tail. You know, something that really swims, moves a lot of water on that half-ounce. And then if it's getting kind of tough, or, you know, changing conditions, cold front, you don't think the fish are biting good, or on a bigger jig with a bigger trailer, if you feel like you're getting short striked, you know, like they're picking it up, they're putting it down, or you set the hook and there's no fish there, they're just picking up them tails and they're swimming. Then I'll go back to just the old faithful 3/8 ounce Ozark crawl zapper jig, the Crockett one. You know, this is the one I've been throwing for the last 30 years. It's got a little ring crawl trailer on the back of it, little green pumpkin red, and I'll throw it on 12-pound test. So when I'm going down with my jig size, I'm also going down with my line size. This is more of a finesse bait. If the bite's tough, if it slows down, maybe if you're following someone down a bank, if someone's been there before you and it's getting a lot of pressure, you can downsize with a smaller jig, work it real slow, and usually come up with a bite or 2. Saturday in the BFL, for the most part, didn't have anyone anywhere near what I was trying to fish. But later in the day, we did run into a couple banks, and there was a couple boats on it. Had just went down it, and we were able to go in there, and I switched up through the small jig and was able to catch a couple more keepers and call out a couple of fish late, and I kind of contributed to the smaller jig. So just keep that in mind. If you're not getting bites, or it's tough, or like I said, you're following someone, maybe go down to a smaller jig. You know, the stick bait, it's still playing a good part in catching a lot of fish. It will through April, you know, even into early May sometimes. But right now, just like we'll say Sunday we fished a tournament. Me and my brother fished a tournament, and boy, it was a struggle to get a bite on jigs. And believe it or not, I left my phone in the truck at the ramp, and I didn't have my phone, and I didn't look at the current, what they were doing. A lot of times, I'll look throughout the day, kind of see what they're doing. And anyway, when we got back and I looked at my phone, they had pulled 28 to 32,000 cubic foot the entire day on Sunday. And all that does is, if you're catching them shallow, like I was on the jig, them fish will back out and they'll suspend. They'll go out main lake, or not necessarily main lake, but more point oriented, or they'll just back off of the bank and they'll suspend out there. You know, they'll suspend 5, 6, 8 foot down, you know, in 15, 18 foot of water. And we just didn't make that adjustment on Sunday, and ended up with 4 keepers. You know, one more puts us right in the middle, you know, with the top finishers. But either way, all I'm getting at is, you might pay attention, you know, to the current, and if you're not getting bites on the bottom or close to the bank, or on a different bait, and they're pulling a lot of current, you got to make that adjustment, you know, and you want to maybe back off the bank, throw stick baits. Spinner baits are starting to play. You know, we're above that 48 degrees first thing in the morning. Once we get up there, you can start catching fish on a spinner bait, fairly consistent. Same thing goes with a spinner bait. You're going to want to switch up your blades, your colors, your trailers. You know, I've got a few set out here that I'm throwing in that dirty water. You know, I like something with a little color in it. Like this is a 3/4 ounce. This is a custom crack gator one that I made with number 4, number 5 willow leaf. One's gold, one's white. It's more of a white mouse color with a swim bait on the back as a trailer. I really like that one in the dirty water. Same thing goes like this here. I think this is one of those E factors with painted blades. You know, you got chartreuse, you got a white blade, chartreuse and white. In that dirtier water, boy, the blades really show up, and it'll draw out fish out around shallow cover and get you a lot of bites like that. You know, you can see I got a trailer on the back of it. You want to do that because it's obviously, as we're getting into the spinnerbait bite, some of these fish will kind of nip at it. They'll swipe at it. They may not really take that bait in totally, and you know, you'll catch them on that trailer hook. So it's really important to throw that trailer hook. That spinnerbait, I'm throwing it on 17 or 20 pound fluorocarbon. I'm throwing it on a 7'2" Falcon Amistad rod. You know, anything 7 foot, 7'2", 7'4", heavier action rod. You know, this is kind of a power bait. You know, what you're going to throw shallow cover, lay downs. You know, main lake points are starting to play on that lower end. You know, a lot clearer. That's starting to fire up. We caught a couple 4-pounders today and a few other keepers. I say a few other, I think 2 other keepers on a spinnerbait down lake today. And you know, so that's telling me that's firing up. That water temp was 47 down there, so it's there. It's getting there. Up lake, you can catch them, you know, same way. Main lake points, secondary points, steep channel banks. You can throw that spinnerbait on it and catch some fish. You're probably not going to get a lot of bites on it, but when you do on a spinnerbait, they're usually good quality fish. you know, especially for this time of year. This weekend, there's anglers in action. I expect to see quite a few good bags finally, more consistent, you know, with the bags, um, you know, being higher as far as not such a separation. If you've seen the last few weeks, it's been one or two good bags, and then it drops down. Um, you know, from there it gets down. We're gonna not change a whole lot. I'm gonna say 13 to 15 is a decent bag, kind of solid. 15 to 18 is a real good bag. Anything over 18 is a solid potential winning bag right now. If you get over 20, which is pretty much going to take from here on out, it might take 21 to win. It might take 26 to win. You know, last weekend it took 26 to win the BFL. You know, but then it dropped down to 19, which is a little more, you know, what we expect. So that was obviously a pro-am, like Anglers in Action or any of the team. Those are team tournaments. So between two of you throwing baits all day, big fish baits, spinner baits, you know, still jerk baits. Of course, the Alabama rig's going to come into play. Another couple other baits is the Carolina rig. It's going to starting to play here. The Carolina rig is a very consistent spring bait. You know, it has been for years and years. You know, that water temp hits 50. It's 50 in the morning. You can start throwing Carolina rig and catch some fish. You get some fish piling up on some of these points, and you know they'll you can go down a bank or a point and really start catching them on the Carolina rig. You know, and it's a very simple bait if you haven't thrown it. And only thing different on a Carolina rig is your leader, you know, and I kind of always do that according to my clarity of water. You know, if it's clean water, clear water, you want a longer leader. If it's shorter, you want a shorter leader. You know, like this one here, this is about 3.5, 4 foot. I got a 3/4 ounce brass weight. I got a glass bead, and then I've got my swivel. And you can hear that, you know, when it's bouncing through them rocks. It gets a lot of attention, and then like this is a Zoom lizard, probably my favorite thing to throw on the back of a Carolina rig is just the old, I think that's a 6-inch lizard. This is watermelon, and I'll take a little chartreuse and chartreuse that tail up. Seems to make a big difference, you know. And you're throwing these to right now more. I'll say not quite basketball size, but more, 8-inch diameter, a little bigger than a softball, but pea gravel mixed in it, and just throw that thing to the bank and just drag it out there, drag it, you know, reel back up, drag it more. You can feel that weight just bouncing through them rocks, making the disturbance that gets their attention. They come in and investigate, and here comes that lizard behind there, and they grab hold of it. It's just a really productive bait for this time of year, all the way through the spring. You know, other baits I throw on it is like a beaver style bait. You know, like Reaction Innovations, the Sweet Beaver. That's a really good bait to throw on it. It's a little more smaller, little compact bait, but sometimes that's what it takes, a little bulkier bait to get some bites. You know, brush hogs, both the baby brush hog and the full-size brush hog are really good baits to put on the back of a Carolina rig. Something with a lot of movement. You know, looking at this lizard right now, my grandson and I was out critter hunting today and found a salamander that was about this size. So does it have something to do with springtime fishing? I'd say absolutely. Those critters are like that, are coming out. Fish feed on them. They're just natural food for fish. So you know, Carolina rig from here on is a really good bait to throw on some of them days where you can't get anything else to bite. Tie you on a Carolina rig and throw it. Just start with points gravelly points. It seems like you almost always need some sort of gravel mix. You can, gravel mix with basketball size, softball size, or even baseball size. You just kind of go down, mix it up. Still transition banks, big rock to smaller rock are great. Your bluff pockets are really good for really big fish. You just got bluffs on both sides. And you got a little, 30-yard pocket that breaks down to pea gravel in the back. Just throw right in the center of that and drag them, and you catch some really good fish doing that. So don't overlook the old school Carolina rig. Don't hear a lot about it, but it still catches fish. Let's see, there's crankbait. Crankbait's been doing real well. That was Denise did well in the BFL, and that was her mainstay was crankbait. This is actually a natural crawl. This is a rock crawler. The little clear water, I like that green, that natural crawl. Throwing it on 12-pound fluorocarbon. This is that Vertus crankbait rod with a new reel that I tried out. This is a Daiwa Tatula. It's got a 5-to-1 gear ratio. Man, that's a heck of a reel. It really works this bait good. The right gear ratio, casts forever. It's one of the setups. Your crankbait, you can't just throw that on any rod and reel. You got to have the right proper rod. You want a longer rod, a rod that's real flexible in the tip. So it'll give with these when you're hitting these rocks. It's given. It won't snag up so much. When a fish hits it and hits it hard, that rod gives and it keeps them little treble hooks embedded instead of pulling out. So really important to have the right rod and reel set up for crankbaits. Like I said, that's natural crawl. Some other crankbaits we've been throwing, obviously, in that dirty water, like this is a wigglewart, old school wigglewart. That red seems to be, getting the bites in that dirtier water, or if it's real cloudy day or something about that red really gets them going. Another bait here, another old school bait. This is the old Magnum wigglewart. This old one here, but it'll catch them in the spring when they're feeding on them big shad, and they're looking for a couple big bites throughout the day. Something like a mag wigwart, if you can find it. I know there's other companies make. Lucky Craft makes a similar one. Sixth Sense makes a similar one. It's just a bigger profile. Got different rattles in it. Obviously the hooks, the old school hooks, weren't any good, so you want to switch out the hooks if you're using something like that. These are number 3 Gamakatsus. Obviously you want good sharp hooks on those crankbaits when you're throwing that. And those banks, I try to get on these longer banks that's got several different transitions in it. Big rock to small rock, a little pea gravel section, even ledgy stuff. And I just try to cover a lot of water until I catch one or two, and then I can kind of focus on what type of rock that was. Because different days will change which rocks they're related to. So, each day you may have to go down these banks and parallel these banks until you catch a fish or two. And then once you see what kind of rocks are on, then you can skip that other stuff and be more productive with your cast and just hone in on that right type of rock. So, just keep that in mind when you're throwing crankbaits, stick baits, spinnerbait, whatever it is. Once you catch a fish, and I'm going to say a fish 3 pounds or bigger, those are the fish I pay attention to. If I can catch a fish like that, then that's telling me what some of your better fish are relating to, compared to if you catch a 15-inch, 15-and-a-quarter-inch keeper. They don't really tell me a whole lot. They'll tell you, you can catch them, but they're not really what you're after. Don't get me wrong. If I got 4 in the box and I catch a 15-and-a-half-incher, I'm thrilled to death. But I'm just saying, you're looking for 3.5 pounders or better to tell you what's going on. So That's about what we're going to have from now till even probably the bash is in 2 weeks. We're going to have some cool days, but we're like tomorrow's going to be stormy, 75 degrees, and really really windy. And all that does is warm that water up, puts oxygen shallow, and them fish just really they wait for these days in the spring, and that's what gets them to go from suspending to moving up shallow and really start feeding before the spawn. So it's going to be rainy, stormy, windy tomorrow, but we've been waiting on these days to make a change. Sometimes you need a drastic change one way or the other in the spring to finally get these fish that's just been locked in, kind of in a holding pattern, and a drastic weather change will get them to commit and move. And I think that's tomorrow. I think that's what tomorrow's going to be. Is going to be that day to get these fish, a lot of them to commit and really move shallow. Whether it be some of these fish for the last several weeks have been halfway back in the creek, so we're going to get a lot of them moved back. But there's a lot of fish still coming up. The fish we caught today, one was a little over 4, and that fish looked brand new. There wasn't a mark on him. He was healthy, real pretty green, just a healthy fish. So that's just telling me they're just coming up. They're just starting to work the banks, and they're just moving up. So as that type of stuff starts happening, they haven't been seeing all these baits. They haven't been hit, with all these stick baits, Alabama rigs. They're new fish, so they're a little more likely to be caught. The live scope's been obviously playing a big part in a lot of tournaments, and obviously I've been using it when I can. A lot of times I use my live scope just to tell me if there's activity going on, if it's in a creek, if they're up by the bank. If I find a brush pile where they're sitting on the brush pile, you can learn a lot by watching your live scopes of what's going on in that creek. You can find big schools of shad, you can just a lot of things you can really tell just by watching that and seeing if fish are following your bait, if they're reacting to your bait, if they're swiping at it, if they're just swimming with it. You can just see so much with that live scope. It just really helps kind of key in on what's going on. I said something about Sunday not making the adjustment, and I a couple times I remember we were talking. I was like, man, there's a lot of fish just kind of hanging out, suspended, and I should have made the adjustment. I didn't, but that was all live scope. I could tell that. Talking about the live scope or forward facing sonar, I know there's a lot of talk about it out there in the fishing world right now, I guess. And I do get asked about it. Obviously, live scope's been out almost 5 years. I had the thing as soon as it come out, I got one, and I've been using it ever since. Is it a total game changer? Is it a total, you got to have it to catch fish? You got to have it to win? Everything that's out there, I'm going to say no, absolutely not. Does it help? It opened up a whole new way of fishing, even in the winter, springtime, summertime. It's opened up all this offshore or suspended fish around brush piles. It's opened up a new technique, I guess I'd call it. But let's see, Saturday on the BFL, when I was fishing a jig. I turned my electronics off. I did not have electronics on, so you don't have to have it. And I had 16 something pounds, and I had one less fish to call out. If I call that fish out, I'm right there, and it's just a matter of getting the bites. And one thing the whole point I want to make on the live scope and forward facing sonar is don't let it get in your mind. Don't let it get you thinking, I don't have it. I don't know how to fish it. I don't have the experience. I'm not going to catch some fish. I can't win. I can't compete, because that's not the way it is. you just got to you got to keep yourself mentally focused on what you want to do and the things you want to do. And the way we caught them 20 years ago on jigs, we can still catch them today. You still catch them on shallow cover, on spinner baits, Carolina rig, all the stuff we used to catch them on. They're still catchable like that. It's no different than what I would call dock talk. You can stand around before a tournament on the dock and talk to people or listen to people, and you can mentally get yourself out of the game. And you're out there and you're thinking, this is what I want to do, but oh man, if I'm not out there doing this, I'm not catching. Because I don't really think that's the case. You just got to stay focused. It's like anything, and it'll play. It's gonna run its course. Just like say the whopper plopper, when it came out, that's all you needed. In the fall, you just put on a whopper plopper, go down the banks, and you caught them. Well, they've quit hitting it now. They'll still hit it, but nowhere near like they used to hit it. Alabama rigs, same thing. Alabama rig came out. If you're not throwing the Alabama rig, you're not going to win. Well, that's changed now. You can still obviously throw it. It's still very productive, but they don't hit it nowhere near like they used to hit it. There's just a lot of baits like that. You got baits like jigs, like the Alabama rig, the whopper popper. They make a really unique sound. The Alabama rig makes a vibration, a sound, a flash. And these bigger fish, they get accustomed to it, and they get keen to it. And that's when you start seeing a lot of them follow your bait, come up behind it, don't attack it. Same thing with jerkbait. Jerkbait's another perfect example. I don't know how many fish I had on the jerkbait, watch them on live scope. Or at least I wasn't watching them. I'm working my jerkbait, and here they come off the bottom, come up to the bait and turn and go back down. Or they run up to it and they stop and they turn back around on that jerkbait. You can't tell me like these 110s. It don't matter what jerkbait you're throwing. They got rattles to them. They got different sound to them. And these fish, these older mature fish, they get keen to what that sound means. And if the last time they attacked it and they got hooked, there's something in it. It's just nature. It's no different than deer, whatever, turkey. If they get used to something and they get keen to it, next time they're not going to be so aggressive to hit a bait. So, you got baits like jigs. On the other hand, jig, what's it do? It imitates a crawfish. It's quiet. It looks like a crawfish. You work it, it acts like a crawfish. It doesn't have those characteristics like some of these Alabama rig stick baits, whopper poppers that I think these fish can keen in on. That's why it's been catching fish forever, and it's still going to catch fish. They don't have that sense of warning or alertness that they get with some of these other baits. So, I've already seen it with the forward facing, the live scope. I will see, and I call it flashing your fish. You'll pan over and you'll see some fish suspended. They might be on a brush pile, they might be out on a point, and if you flash them too much, them fish will leave. They'll go to the bottom, they'll move, or it also, I think, just alerts them something's not right. You can't tell me they don't feel that wave. That horizontal, they feed and they sense from that horizontal line on their side. And when they're really feeding or relating to that horizontal line, and you flash them with something like that, they get alerted. And I think that's going to play its course a little bit. You're still going to be able to use that as a tool, and it'll always be good. But it's not going to be as prominent in the years to come until they come out with something different, which they will. So just keep all that in mind as far as if you're not real experienced with it or you don't do it a lot, you can still compete. You don't have to have it to compete and win these tournaments. You just got to put your head down and you got to go do what you want to do, especially in the spring. Springtime, these fish move shallow. You can catch them shallow, 2 foot under a dock, on different banks, different things. Either way, I spent enough time on that. But I just wanted to make that point. I think they're an extremely good tool for teaching us, what these fish are doing. I use the thing. I'm going to continue to use it. I don't see it going anywhere until something better or more improved comes out. Maybe they're going to come out with something that's going to light up and say, that's a crappie, that's a bass, that's a drum. I wish they would. They'd keep me from catching all these drum. But you can read them, and the more you look at them, you can really start distinguishing types of fish, what species. So enough on that. Crappie's still excellent. Some crappie are moving, some are getting close to the bank. We caught some crappie in 3 foot of water, with the slip bobber. That's pretty easy. You just throw it to the bank, set your bobber or cork, say, 3 foot, with a little crappie jig on it, and just reel it slow, stop it, let the waves. If it's windy, choppy, it's better. It moves that your bobber, gives your bait all the action it needs. Just let it sit there and just move it a little bit. It'll pull them crappie up. There's still a lot of crappie suspended just out off of the bank. A lot of them are relating to docks, deeper docks, docks on points, docks catching wind, or your primary docks that are holding. They're loading up on braces on these docks. We're still throwing just kind of the same thing we've been throwing. That little 3-inch Easy Shiner Kitech rigged up on a 16th ounce head or an 1/8 ounce head if you need a little more weight to throw it into the wind. I had these little sickle hook ones made. I think these are the ones Alfred Chapman made for us. Really good little bait. Dave up at Hook Solutions up there in Lincoln, he makes them, calls them screwing around head. For these soft plastics, you almost got to have them. Otherwise, you're replacing a bait every fish because they tear so easy. So, throwing that on a 6-pound test, just a crappie rod set up. Line, we're throwing, 6-pound monofilament. Throwing some with the yellow when we're shooting docks so we can see that line. Or we're just throwing the clear when we're throwing out in the open water. There's a lot of fish, even up in the stained water, so the line really ain't making a big difference. On line, I think more so on line a lot of times. Big believer with it on jigs, that the heavier line, they don't necessarily see that line, because you've got, they're focused in on the bait, but I think they feel it. They feel it on a horizontal. There's been some talk about like Alabama rigs, throw fluorocarbon or throw braid. I talked to some guys that are really experienced and do real well with it. And some of them say there's some days they go to fluorocarbon because you can, if you catch a fish on that braid, you can hear it coming through the water. And if you can hear it, I know the fish can feel it, the vibration. So, something you might want to try, 20, 25 pound fluorocarbon on your Alabama rigs, might make the difference. So, man, that's about it. I will say, I've been running these lithiums, these Expion 360 lithiums through wholesale batteries, and I'm going on the 4th day, solid day, without charging them. This week I was like, I'm gonna just see how far I can go. Today it was windy. We were on that lower end. That wind was blowing. We were holding on the windy points, windy banks, and I still have not charged those batteries. It's been 4 trips, so that's 4 8-hour trips, 2 tournaments, 2 trips, and I have yet to charge them. So the lithiums, they're living up to all the hype. These Expions, through wholesale batteries, you can look them up. It's a publicly traded United States company. It's American engineered, American designed lithium batteries. Just I could tell you about them. Just look them up, Google them, look them up on them. I've got so much confidence and you know, my thought and confidence on these baits. I actually bought several shares of stock last week for the Expion 360. You can look at them online and see where they're publicly traded on NASDAQ. So, you know, I'm pro-American. I'm pro-support American companies whenever possible. So, if you are in the market for these lithium batteries, take a look at Expion 360 batteries and all the different characteristics that make them unique. So, boy, other than that, I will definitely, I promise you I'll do one before the Big Bass Bash as things change. Haven't really caught any fish flipping real shallow docks yet, but once we're into them 50s, you know, I start testing those shallow docks and big females get up there by them docks. And this next week, you know, these shallow brush piles, shallow laydowns with spinner baits are going to definitely come into play. So, boy, until next week, I guess. That's all I got for you. But until then, just be safe out there. If Denise or I can help you with a trip, like I said, crappies still good. Bass tournaments are going. If you just don't have time to come down and pre-fish, Denise or I can take you out and show you what we're doing, showing the patterns that's working now, what's coming up in a couple weeks, and really help you just kind of focus and key in on what you need to do if you don't have the time to come down and pre-fish. So at least you feel like you're in the game and you're doing the right thing. Sometimes, you know, a lot of times you take people out and a lot of people are doing the right things. They just need the confidence and the mindset that, yeah, that is the right thing to do. Or just show them little subtle things that we look for or that we do that makes a total difference, makes a difference in the day. So if either one of us can help you on a guide trip, please give us a call, 573-204-9005 for me, 314-226-3099 for Denise. Give us a call if you got any questions about trips, question about ramps. Like I said, anything we can help you with, call us, text us. We will get back with you. If you want to schedule a trip, we can do it like that too. So other than that, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in about a week.